Hey all, I recently returned from my UK speaking tour, 4 events around the southwest of England, quite a lot of driving, and I was covering geopolitics, what's going on in the world, the Middle Eastern situation, who's driving what, and also my second talk in each event, I did mental strength and resilience and covered some jewels of psychology from my online workshops, where I do mental strength, critical thinking, weight loss, and more to be added, live workshops. But in any case, here's a segment of the second talk around that topic of mental strength that we all need in these challenging times. And hopefully next Thursday, the 10th of July, I have my next critical thinking, and the following Thursday, the 17th, I have my next mental strength and resilience masterclass. So you can go to ivorcumminsworkshops.com and book in there, and there's a double deal as well with a discount. So anyway, hope to see you there. They're great sessions, getting fantastic feedback, and people love this talk, which I'm just about to show you a large segment of. So I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you, Bob. Okay, so it was good that we went through all the kind of positive stuff, because it is positive and what we need to be doing. This one is more about mental strength and psychology. It's something I've been into for decades, and in the last 6 months, or actually 8 or 9 months, I've done 50-hour courses because I wanted to take all my knowledge in psychology after decades of managing teams and working on my own mental strength, kind of informally. I wanted to go through the process of doing all the academic, scientific stuff. I did invest in a large touch screen because I saw one of the psychology lecturers use one. I thought it was cool. And you can actually write on the screen as people in your workshop through Zoom tell you their anxieties or stuff, and you work through them with templates. So I invested quite a bit, so it's a bit of a lost leader running it. Now, you all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's very important. I was arrogant enough to create my own triangle. Why should Maslow have a triangle, not me? And it's a bit different because it's all around solutions as opposed to just understanding how people are. And I would call it integration of the mind. Now, these things I'd have to explain, but briefly, thought scanning and analysis for me is fundamental. It's the most basic thing we should all be doing. We have around 50,000 thoughts a day. 95% of them are the exact same as the ones we had yesterday, so we're kind of trapped by our past. I know, it's weird. And you think, how could you have 50,000? But they're all flying through your subconscious. Like the brain, the machine, all the time is thoughts they're flying around. We recognize some of them and we realize we're thinking about something, but there's tens of thousands more. And because they're the same as yesterday for most people, we're kind of trapped in the current, because we're having the same thoughts every day. So a lot of those thoughts 80% are generally negative. They're kind of fear-based or concern-based thoughts, because survival's important. So we have around 40,000 negative thoughts flying through our head each day. And unless you can kind of begin to become expert in pulling them out and analyzing them, they'll cause you mild depression, mood drop, anxiety, perspiring, overthinking, yada, yada, yada. So thought scanning. Belief re-encoding is important because we encoded a lot of beliefs in ourselves when we were younger that were not actually true. But they're in there now in the database, and they can affect how we react and how we perform now, even though now if we reassess them and understood them, we could rewrite them correctly. So that's a thing, and there's tools for that. Values and purposes we mentioned, luckily, about the martyrs. Values and purposes gave me the strength to get put in the New York Times and hit pieces, and Belfast Telegraph put a half page on me and accused me kind of for the death of a Northern Ireland councillor in his 40s, family man. I'm telling you, it was nuts. People used to write to me when they saw these hit pieces, Ivor, are you okay? Luckily, as I said, I'm fine. But it was because I knew exactly what I was doing and why, and I viewed them all as pond scum. So I wasn't affected by all the abuse so much. Prefrontal dominant, we'll explain in a minute, and measuring only against the best that you can be is what you can achieve if you do all of this very well, and you fully internalize. If anyone criticizes you, many of us, it throws us into a spin. Or certainly if a big newspaper publishes a hit piece, most people would go to ground. I didn't care. If people criticize you, by all means, take what they say, analyze it without emotion, and if they've made a valid point where you could be better, then go and be better. But don't ever let anyone judge you and have you take it to heart. It makes no sense, but let's be honest, most people, it really hurts them, you know? So that's it. If you get The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters, quite a beautiful gentleman, incredible mind, a lovely man, and he cracked 15 years ago how our brains work and how you can, by understanding that, become much stronger and manage your mind much better. It's around $5 or $6. He probably gets 50 cents out of it because I'm an author and I know what you get. He's doing this for wanting to help people. But yeah, buy his book, read it. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to speed things up. Basically, we have two thinking machines in our head. One of them is essentially a chimpanzee structure, same as a chimp's brain. I know, that's how we got here, or the creator decided to do this, or evolution, whatever you want. But we have a human brain that is separate. Two thinking machines, two conductors of the orchestra, and you need to manage them. You need to manage them. So roughly speaking, hypothalamus gives us our drives, like shelter, water, food. It's programmed into us. It's instinctual. The amygdala you might have heard of, that's the emotional memory center, simplifying it. People think, oh, your amygdala makes you, have a fit. But it's actually much more interesting than that, because the orbitofrontal cortex is actually our chimp brain. And it is unto itself a thinking machine. And it runs our life from birth. We're born with our chimp brain, we inherit it as it is, right? And that's why babies up to 2 or 3 years old, they're very emotional, they're impulsive, they screech, they can't see logic, they can't problem solve, because they've only got their chimp brain. And then your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex develops. So from 3 or 4 onwards, you begin to become you. So you are your prefrontal cortex, that is you. You are not your chimp. You're responsible for managing your chimp, but you are this, right? And by all means, the dorsolateral links with the amygdala, but the chimp brain really owns that space. The dorsolateral mainly links to hippocampal, and your dorsolateral is you, the human, and it has a sense of time. The chimp has no sense of time. It has logic, can read and write, logical structures. The chimp has none. It can feel compassion in a very advanced way. The chimp can't. And I could go on, but this is the human brain. This is what makes us human. This is why we rule the planet, or wherever you want to say. The thalamus gets signals from the outside world. Well, thalami, there's 2 of them, little walnuts. And they give the signals of everything that happens in the outside world, events. Someone shouts at you, a car cuts across you. The chimp brain is given that first to take action. Sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? You'd think it'd be given to you, right? Because you're smarter. No, the chimp is fight, flight, freeze, survival. So the chimp will always get first dibs on anything that happens. And you can probably see this is the problem, because the chimp can make a lot of mistakes, especially in the modern world, right? We're not in the jungle anymore. And then the human brain gets to step in. But luckily, there are ways of managing the chimp brain's response, but they require knowledge and they require tools, and most people just don't have a clue what's happening. When they have a road rage incident and the chimp goes crazy, and after it, maybe they've hit someone, and now they're in a jail cell, and they're sitting there thinking, what was I thinking? What did I do? But they have no idea that their chimp brain did all that. It felt its local environment was being infringed upon. It felt threatened by the incident with the other driver, and it went off on a warpath, So the chimp brain is very challenging. The rest is very complex. Peters goes through, but the rest of the brain, really, all the blue, he calls the computer, just to separate the thinking machines that conduct the orchestra from the massively complex system of the brain, Your role is, as a human, is to program your computer over time to make your whole mental strength better. So here's what happens. An activating event, difficult interaction, fight with your spouse, boss shouts at you or says your work is crap, road rage, an animal comes into the room when you're watching television or you see something moving, anything, right? First thing that happens is goes to the thalami, which are like kind of transponders or relay stations, and it sends the information to the chimp so the chimp can decide, is it a problem? The first step that happens after that is the chimp stops the human brain from engaging. It blocks it, right? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it made sense for thousands, millions of years. You can't trust a human thinking brain with what might be an immediate fight, flight, or freeze threat. You just can't trust it.
Is this when you get the expression, a rush of blood to the head?
Rush of blood to the head, yes. And that's remarkably accurate because...
football I used to.
Yeah. Well, the rush of blood to the head, actually, it's really interesting because Professor Peters thought up this model without proof. And 10 years after he wrote the book, and he had it as a framework for medical students to help them understand how humans work, but he didn't have proof. But 10 years later, papers were published where they verified this. They got people and they caused them to go into anxious states, and the blood flowed to the limbic system. Yeah, the blood literally flowed and their MRIs lit up. And then when they got them thinking logically, calmed them down and distracted them, and Peters did this as well with people. He said with patients, he could turn them into two different people. That's how he thought up the model. He realized if he brought them into emotional or areas they felt threatened by, they were different people than when he calmed them and brought them into different questions. He realized he was dealing with two different people. And that's where he made this model. And they've proved since that not only is it correct scientifically, but the brain we have, the thinking machine, is direct copy of chimpanzee, but not any of the other great apes. They're very different. So he even got that right. So after the human is blocked for a moment, the chimp checks with the computer. It actually respects the computer, which holds all the knowledge of the chimp and the human brain over the whole life. And it respects if the computer tells it it's okay or whatever. And rightly so. Now, what can happen is, if it was, say, an animal moved in the corner of the room and you're watching television, what can happen really fast is that's a potential threat, goes to the chimp brain checks with the computer verifies that actually that's the new puppy, because it has all the pattern recognition and memory, and it's able to answer, no, that's the puppy. And then you may do an autopilot. You may absent-mindedly go over and pet it, because the computer basically said, we got this. The computer alternatively can feed back and say, no, there is a concern, or this is not fully answered. But it can tell the chimp, this is a problem from our memory, from all our knowledge. This is a problem, it could be pretty bad. And the chimp could choose to basically do fight, flight, freeze, hence the rush of blood to the head. Or the computer could come back and say, actually, this is more appropriate for the human to take care of. It's complicated, it needs work, but it's not for extreme reaction. And it gets finally handed to the computer brain. That's happening all the time with every impulse. It's good, isn't it? The beauty is, and the reason I put it in gold, and this is a symbol for psychology, this is psychological gold. Oh, right, yeah. No, apparently I found a symbol for psychology and then I changed it in PowerPoint to be golden, just because I thought it was a bit funny. Anyway, the gold is, as Professor Peters says, it's very hard to arm wrestle the chimp because primordially it's much more powerful than us. It's not impossible, but in the moment when you do get control, it's very hard to fight with your chimp. The route to fix this problem is to reprogram your computer over time, because the chimp will absolutely trust the computer. Do you see the trick? Circumvent the problem. How do you program the computer? Well, I tell you how you don't. Unfortunately, positive thinking. I'm not against positive thinking, I'm a very positive thinking guy. However, if you are very nervous speaking, and you keep telling yourself, tomorrow morning at that speech, I'm going to be fine. and this is it. I'm just going to do it, right? The problem with that is your own brain knows that you're not authentic, and your own brain knows it's not true. So it does not write to the computer because it's not true. So positive thinking at a basic level doesn't work because your brain knows you're just saying it, okay? However, if you use templates and analyze an anxiety you have and lay out all the facts and the justification for that anxiety and maybe get a very good friend to honestly tell you about that problem, and you think and you contemplate it and you come to the conclusion that actually, you know what, I understand now that I will be better tomorrow at that speech, and you believe it. If you do that work over time and meditate or internalize it, the system will recognize that the human brain now has a new perspective and it's authentic, and it will write to the computer and it will better control that guy when you get up on the podium. Okay, this applies to everything. This applies to everything. Not public speaking is a good example because a lot of people are nervous at it. So that's the magic step, and that takes practice and work. I've been doing this for around 25 years plus, and it's the only reason I'm here today. It's the only reason they can print articles attacking me, embarrass my whole family, have friends cancel me, and I don't care. It's largely because of this, but it took many, many, many years. So fundamentally, cognitive behavioral science, which is what this is based on. Now, the chimp model is fantastic, but it's largely CBT. Events that happen in the world and a huge amount of how they affect us is based on our own personal history and our beliefs that are encoded in our amygdala and in our hippocampal. So events that happen don't affect one person, they're not worried, and you're a shivering wreck. Obviously, we each have our own memories and fears that when events happen, they trigger us. But all these events, they're usually, when they cause a problem, your chimp brain has felt a threat and got involved. And that's why you can't just stoically deal with the challenge, because that's your human brain. But the chimp often causes trouble. And the root cause for most people is, well, they'd say, if I get healthy feelings or good feelings, or I get bad feelings or depression, or I begin to perspire, it's because of what happened. They shouted at me. That's why I'm sweating and anxious and I'm miserable the last 2 days, because that's not true. Now, I know you'll say, hold on a minute. No, but that's not true. Or they'll say, well, the fact that they hit that person was because of this, and that's not true, right? The root cause of behaviors and emotions and feelings is the thoughts that are conducted based on the events. And that's why the Stoics said all the time in a million different quotes, Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Cicero, they all said the same thing in many ways. The quality of your life depends entirely on the quality of your thoughts. And they understood thousands of years ago, before any science, all of what I'm telling you, just from thinking about it, they worked it out. They realized that everything is the thoughts, ephemeral thoughts that occur in your head are creating all the outcomes. And it's not really what happens. It's your thoughts. And unfortunately, our thoughts are chaotically, oftentimes, controlled by the chimp brain. So the 50,000 thoughts, there's a thing called NATs, negative automatic thoughts. They can happen and repeat all day long and you're miserable. That's the chimp is anxious. And the chimp cannot speak to you in any language but emotion. So when the chimp is anxious, your stomach has a knot in it, because the chimp can only speak to you in there in emotion. I am scared, I am anxious, I am frightened. This happened to me when I was 8 years old, right? Now what's happening is like that, but the chimp has no sense of time. So the chimp now, right, today, the 29th of June, something happens that triggers a memory from when you were 8. To the chimp is 8. That memory is now. It is living that fear or trauma that happened. The human brain would know that, well, actually, that was then. But remember, it's the chimp brain that is sending the emotional torrent. It's got control, you know. So managing our chimp and managing our thoughts is where the magic is. And that takes some skill. So I'm just taking one of many slides like this just to give a flavor. So your current state, let's say your computer is quite red. It's not good. We won't name anyone. But there are lots of people. Half the people in the world, I'd say, their computer is red by my standard. Half the people in the world, so a few billion. Rough and tough. But if someone has any self-esteem or any past memories that are impacting their current functionality, you know, they got stuff going on. And if you allowed the chimp to manage your life, or you can't control it or don't understand it, your feelings will tend to be like this over time, over weeks and months. That will be your life. It's not a great way to live. And take an extreme example. Someone who clearly has severe anxiety, right? That the amplitude of that is going to be even bigger. It's not a nice way to live, okay? If you have faith, religious faith, that's kind of better, right? Because your religious faith is giving you strength. And I did mention values and principles give you great power. But broadly, someone who has a faith and they use that to stay level, it's better in many ways, but when you lose your faith and something goes badly wrong, that type of person, you can get a real slide down, you know, and then you can recover your faith and get over it and you're back up again. So that's the engineering wise, that's kind of your life. Occasional big drops. Ideal state, self-concept is what I'm talking about, and I'm still striving for a lot of progress over 30 years, but I'm still striving, still working. And that's when you base your thoughts and your life on facts in a structured way. You always put facts down on paper, evidence for and against the thoughts that are giving you bad feeling or anxiety. You get the facts down, you analyze them like an engineer, and then you meditate and internalize the picture you have worked on, because the human brain can problem solve, the chimp can't. And then you internalize, actually, I wasn't totally at fault for that thing I did, which is killing me. It's so embarrassed. I'm just, all day long, the last 3 days, I thought about that thing I did. But you find out when you analyze it that you could say, well, maybe I was 30% responsible for that bad thing, and then others were X%. You're quantifying it. And then you begin to accept that you did something wrong, and you were 30% responsible, but you internalize and accept that, come to terms with it, and now you are beginning to take away the whole anxiety around that thing, because you've done the work. You've written it down, you've analyzed it, you've got input, you've actually done the work on paper. There's a reason humans can read and write and chimps can't. We have the capability of doing what I'm describing. And when you do it, you move forward. And if you keep doing it, obviously for the more problematic thoughts, you don't do it for everything, right? If you keep doing it over time, you move towards this. And that is living more as a Stoic. That's it. This is a big one. I go through circle of concern and circle of control in the online workshop. Most people now are like this. They are dominated by their circle of concern. A lot of their mind share is looking at celebrities, looking at problems, worrying about this, worrying about that, blah, blah, blah. And relatively, they're not spending near enough on their friends, their family, their life, and their progression as a human being. That'll do it, folks. So as I said, ivorcumminsworkshops.com. You can book in for the next live workshop sessions on mental strength and resilience and critical thinking coming up in the next couple of weeks. And of course, the high definition recording of the full session, the whole Q&A elements also, is sent to all attendees within a couple of days, along with templates, tools, and follow-up material to change your mental strength to kind of what I used to call tungsten carbide skinned. That's what I had to be during COVID for sure, with all the attacks I had. I'm sure many of you saw that and how I dealt with it. So hopefully you guys can benefit and boost your own mental strength, critical thinking skills, and let's all improve together and
Work against those bad guys. Thank you.